All right, hello and welcome everyone. So today we have another JOTT to do, which stands for just one tick test. A lot of you asked that in the comments before. It was a mistake I made a while ago. There's a list of ones that I still got to do. We're doing them every day during the subathon, streamathon, which once again I promise it's a day later. They will not allow it to go below 3 days. It's against the rules. However, this should help the timer go down. We are doing a classic mission from Just, which is the Boltor Prime, the Dual Ichor, and the Lex. So, this was sent in a while ago, but things have changed considerably in the interim for the Boltor Prime and the Lex, and possibly the Dual Ichor soon, but it's the next one on the list, so we're doing it now. Go over the builds here. We're using Rhino Prime because this is a back-in-the-day jam, and this is what I'm bringing with Rhino. This is an Ironclad build that uses Parasitic Armor to turn all of my shields into Iron Skin, essentially, because you convert all of your shields into armor, and then that buffs up your Iron Skin. So basically, we're going to get very, very huge number very, very easily, much larger than we would back in the day. And then for the Boltor Prime, recently made a video on this, but this is the build. If you want more into details on that, there is a video standalone for the Boltor Prime and a more specific test for it. Lex Prime, literally the same deal. Just made a video on these weapons because they just got incarnants. They're very, very strong. And the Dual Ichor is here. Really impressed, actually, that this gets here with one Forma. Kind of nice. But this is just like your very standard, like, quick attack type build using Swirling Tiger. It'll be interesting to see if this gets anywhere with the Incarnate. Most of the melees haven't gotten anywhere with their Incarnate, with the current exception of the Ceramic Dagger. But yeah, this will be serviceable enough for just smacking some dudes. And what would the classic loadout be without a comparative? How strong is everything now? We're going to be doing regular MOT. Not Steel Path MOT, but regular MOT for fun, but for a whole hour. Which hopefully the spawn rate can keep up with that, because I should be able to kill everyone. It's just whether or not the game will spawn me enough enemies that is more so in question. So yeah, that's going to be the vibe. We're going to be hanging out. I have Sarah here with me, who is my partner, and I have Freezer here with me, who is just a friend of the stream. He is this Freezer right here. And it should be an excellent time, so we're getting started. If it fails, we get to bounce to Steel Path. If we fail because there's not enough enemies, I will start up a Steel Path. Synchronize your watches, gentlemen. 1 hour.
Your job is to distract the enemy while a fellow Tenno operative raids the
Also, I have
ship.
Carrier for obvious reasons.
Make your presence known. Life support has been cut off.
Extra strength,
Trying to choke you out.
parasitic armor,
I'm sending out
hit
fellow
2.
life support.
So with just parasitic armor and hitting 2, we have 21,000 armor to work with here, just on our baseline. Enemy's trying to get away. Yeah, just like back in the day. This is literally the same as how it would work back in the day. I'm not even going to incarnate unless I really need to. Is that real back in the day jam? I consider moving the timer to the other side. Nah, it's fine. I don't die anyway. I say, and then I'll die during this run. Interesting.
Life support on the way.
What a nostalgic twang, yeah. Yeah, this is really like, if you want to play what 2016, 2015 like Warframe felt like, use the Boltor Incarnate like this, do all this stuff, and just don't activate the Incarnate mode, and this is like pretty much the feel of just like pinning people to walls. Looks so empty after playing Steel Path. Well, yeah. Yeah, Steel Path has that massive enemy bump. We don't really need roar, which is hilarious, actually. It's just absolutely classic. Also, just of course, like being just like bumping the Lex too.
Get ready for a capsule.
Just like the old days. Activating Incarnate is a time skip. It's true.
Additional life support has arrived.
The dual Ichor. Imagine the dual Ichor actually being able to do something in Steel Path. Melee really is currently at its best if you're just like not playing Steel Path, because like it actually just kills enemies. (2016) Coxcud 2023. Yep. I'll go into stream every day and seeing the timer exactly where it was when I went to bed last night. Yeah, that sounds correct. Yeah, this video, this is just the nostalgia video. That's all this is going to be. They always kill this fast, or are these the Incarnate buffs? Well, so for the Lex and for the Voltor, they have their Incarnate buffs, but the Dual Ichor doesn't have its Incarnate out yet. So this is just how this weapon works in like non-Steel Path. Like if you're not on Steel Path, like this is just what the Dual Ichor does right now. This does not need an Incarnate to do this level mission. Like the only reason we consider like the Dual Ichor to be like, you know, this unusable weapon, and this is actually like an interesting thing to talk about, is because we play Steel Path all the time. Like Steel Path has sort of become the normal mode for people who are like, you know, been playing the game very long term. Like you pretty much play Steel Path most of the time, outside of like maybe like Disruption, because there's not like amazing tools to make that like similarly simple.
Operative is making progress. This will help our cause.
Iron Skin eventually went down.
When you are
Back
ready,
now though.
go to extraction.
Also, interesting thing is that my brain. So this mission Mott still has the ×4 enemy damage multiplier that it did back in the day. Where'd all the enemies go? Hello, everyone. Y'all are hiding. Also, for many people, you would never know that it ever had a damage multiplier, because that was never told to anyone. Yeah, back in the day, whenever Void Relic, well, there weren't even Void Relics. Whenever it was Void Keys, not Relics, all the Tier 4 missions had an enemy damage multiplier to try and kill you. Didn't work. Well, part of why it didn't work back in the day, though, is because we were playing Valkyr. That's back when Valkyr was a big thing, because she just could not die. Back when people were playing Loki. Real back in the day shit. Bros make me feel old knowing what keys are. Yeah. You played Loki? Yeah. Well, Loki, so back in the day, like the best way to get everything you could out of a key was to go as long as you could. And that was actually like part of like that was when endurance was like a real thing. Like I was doing, actually got burnt out on Valkyr, who was at one point my favorite Warframe, because I did 16 hours of farming for the Saren Prime chassis on her release, and that burned me out of Valkyr way back in the day. And that was the Tier 4 I think, well, actually, that mission might have been tier 3, but it's whatever the Saren chassis was on. But, like, just doing it for that long actually burned me out, like, straight up. Just, like, I could not play Valkyrie for, like, ages after that. I mean, well, and then she became bad, so there's also that. But, yeah. Keys were a bad system, reminder. Ugh, data mine drop rates, those were not the days. They were not. Goodbye, Vor. The ancient text. Tell us more, Brother Zyve. Yeah. Oh, man. Then there was the ephemera farm. That was rough on you. Yeah, the ephemera farm. At least that was... So that one, though, like... That was a rough farm. But the benefit to that one is, like, at least it's just for a cosmetic, right? Like, whenever it's for a cosmetic, like, if I don't complete the farm, I don't feel as bad. Right? Like, we did, like, 10 hours of doing Exploiter Orb or whatever and didn't get, like, either of the ephemera. And then, like, I think it was the next day we did, like, 5 hours of farming and we got one of them. And then, like, another 5 hours we got the other, I think it was. So, like, I did, like, 20 hours of Exploiter, which is way too much Exploiter to ever be doing. But, like, at least it was just for cosmetics, and I had, like, 1,000,000 copies of Hildren. Yeah, and then the ephemeras are 2 of the worst ephemeras in the game that I never use. Purely for collector purposes. And it's been ages since I've used the dual Ichor. See, for me, because I've been using the Boltor and the Lex recently, a little bit more Ichor going on, because, like, it's actually good at this level. And, like, you know, it's actually kind of an interesting point Warframe is, where, like, guns became really good, so I've been doing, like, a lot of gun stuff, but, like, I still like melee. There's just not a huge amount of reason to use a melee that's of this flavor. Because we were, you know, in the meta for a long time, we're, like, doing this with a different stance whenever Swirling Tiger was better than it is now, to be fair. But, like, this was, like, the thing, right? Like, using melee to get through nullifier bubbles like that and, like, just, like, mowing everybody down in that way. That was the meta for ages. And now we're back to, like, guns and stuff. And I do wonder if we're going to make this switch again, or if they'll, like, try and, like, slowly buff melee to make it, like, maybe a little less underneath of guns. Because I don't think I want to switch back to the, well, there's only melee. Melee is the only thing you can do meta, because that's not great. But melee being more than a glorified grenade may be preferable. What's, in your opinion, the best Steel Path melees now? The Glaive Prime. Glaive Prime's the best melee weapon in the game. And it's not really a melee weapon, it's more of a grenade, but it's the best melee weapon. Also, to clarify, I don't think that, like, the Glaive Prime being that is bad. The only thing I think is bad is that melee weapons that, like, do attacks like this, like what I'm doing now, are completely, like, unusable on Steel Path. Like, they just don't do anything. Like, they're way too slow and they're just not good. I don't think we need a path between steel and normal. I don't think adding something between steel and normal, I don't think is, like, the thing that needs to happen there. They just need to make melee weapons stronger. I think a strong first step to kind of, like, seeing where melee weapons can get to, because you don't want to overcorrect. You really don't want to overcorrect. I think they should add, like, they should undo the nerfs to melee, I think is the step number 1, just to see what happens. Unnerf Blood Rush, unnerf Condition Overload, like, unnerf Berserker probably as well. Maybe not Berserker. Berserker's maybe the one that can, like, stay how it is, but maybe try and buff that mod a little bit. And, like, just see what that does to melee. and see if it can, like, you know, how much does that bring melee back? Like, how much are people then using it in those, like, much higher level missions and things like that? Wonder if the line of sight requirement. No, the line of sight melee requirement, that's actually there for good reasons. They didn't want people AFKing with a melee weapon by, like, just being behind a wall and doing this, and then this killing everything that walks through this hallway, because that was a legitimate issue that they faced. That from, like, a design standpoint, I understand why they wouldn't want that. That makes perfect sense to me, and, like, I get it. It's like stuff like condition overload and things like that, like mods that need setup, and, like, just like where the power of melee is there. Those nerfs came at the same time as the gun buffs, and you really don't want it to be in as, like, I think that, like, those buffs, or those nerfs rather, alongside those buffs, they didn't need to come together in order to receive the meta that we're in today, where it's pretty much just guns, right? Like, that's not a requirement. Is those nerfs don't create where we are, and they only hinder melee even more from where those buffs took guns. Make follow-through better is definitely one of them. Yeah, making follow-through better. Like, small steps like that, where it's like, you know, think about, like, what if you removed follow-through? Or what if, like, follow-through, like, the way that you scale follow-through was inverted? Like, weapons that are meant to hit a ton of guys maybe get more damage the more guys they hit. Like, stuff, thinking about things like that. Or, like, having weapons where it's like, oh, this weapon's short, like Fang Prime. So if you hit one guy, maybe this is a weapon that, like, is doing way more damage, has no follow-through, can only hit one guy at a time, but give it tons of damage. Are those mods nerfed? All their numbers were lowered, basically, is the TLDR. Hello, enemies? Hello, ring ring, banana phone. Where the fuck are the enemies? Here's some. How much iron skin am I at? Let me see. 162,000. Nice. Just had to get a nice big one with ironclad there. We still need a follow-through mod for melees. Yeah, I think the problem is that a follow-through mod also has to do other stuff, unless it's really good. Like, I mean, if the follow-through mod is a like replacement for pressure point for weapons that can hit a lot of enemies, then, like, that's interesting, right? Like, you can also do, like, arcanes. Like, adding arcanes for melee weapons definitely could shift things back, but they need to start at a lower level than, like, you can't give merciless to melee weapons, because I think that goes too much in the other direction. I'm gonna pop one of these because there ain't no dudes here. Question, do you use E or M1 for melee attacks? I use E. I probably should rebind it, but it's really convenient for, like, the weapons that are good right now. Absolutely pathetic the guns have a decaying combo system and melees don't. Yeah, I mean, it's also, like, a thing for melee is, like, I think that the Naramon point that makes it so that melee decays one at a time instead of all at once, I think that should be a way bound. Like, I think it's fine to have to upgrade to that point. That, I think, is reasonable, but I think that should be a way bound. That should be available to everyone. Like, no matter what focus school you're on, you should be able to get that and unlock that permanently. That would do a lot for a few different things, actually. Guess I'd be fine with that, yeah. Shadow Step still a thing? No, Shadow Step's gone. That also, Shadow Step shouldn't exist. Like, Shadow Step, yeah, they were right to get rid of that. What are the current Naramon waybounds? They make your operator run faster, and they make them have dashes that go longer distance. Which are, like, those could be combined into one node. Also, Naramon needs a buff anyway, so maybe if they wanted to design a new node for it, that could help. You know what? You know what would be great? Here you go. Here's the Naramon rework. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Give them a node, 100% heavy attack efficiency. Combine the dash and sprint waybounds into one, and make the one that changes how combo works into a waybound. That would bring back heavy attack efficiency and make Naramon have the best heavy attack efficiency by going to 100%. And that would actually probably be very interesting. That also keeps the tree at the exact same size, so you just are kind of like moving some stuff around. Also, heavy attack efficiency was already like a node previously, so there's no reason they can't add that in. Like, all those things are already or have been nodes before, so that would probably be a pretty reasonable change. And like 100% heavy attack efficiency, like that also gives melees more to do. Like, it would still be like, oh, well, like, haha, heavy attacks, because heavy attacks are like the thing that's good. But they would be good in a completely different way that you can only do with Naramon. Has Enric lost the heavy attack efficiency node? Yeah, unfortunately. One of the reasons Furex is legitimately a decent melee is its gimmick allowing it to have an 90% heavy efficiency. It's true. The duviri exposed stat stick dependent frame, because you might win the lottery before you get the frame and its preferred stat stick. Yeah, I mean, it certainly made it clear that stat sticks are a problem to more people. Like, I've always been the person that's like, yeah, just make all these things separately moddable. There's no reason that you should be bringing a weapon that gives stats to your Warframe. Like, unless that's, like, you know, a thing on the Warframe. Like, if you had, like, a certain melee weapon and the melee weapon's special abilities, it gives you 10% efficiency or something, then by all means. But, like, whenever it's like, ah, yes, I brought this melee weapon not to use it, but instead to have its mods apply to the thing I brought, like, that sucks. The recommendations for farming Void Plume Pinions: do exterminate and then just always kill the angel. If you can get a bounty that is hunt the angel and it's like tier 3 or above, that's also one of the best endo farms in the game. So that is also a consideration. This will do. There we go, 130k iron skin. The amount of Exalteds, there's no reason not to have that. Yeah. Well, and it's because it's for like the pseudo Exalteds, right? Because like the actual Exalteds have that. The problem with the actual Exalteds is that a lot of them are worse than regular melee weapons because they don't have access to Blood Rush, and they don't build combo on like their ranged attack. Like, those are things that I would change about the Exalted weapons, because like right now, if you look at like Exalted Blade is like not very good because it's not like, it's like about as good as a regular melee weapon, except for it costs you energy and you have to play as Excal. It's like, would you rather have a scythe that hits everything in a room and inflicts a slash proc that'll kill basically anything? Or would you like to be restricted to this one Warframe and have a melee weapon that goes swoosh swoosh a little bit? And it's like, I think I know which one I'd rather be. Like, that's part of the problem right now. Is like, if you just like let Excal's waves build combo and give him Blood Rush, then Excal probably is in like the place where they should be in terms of power. Baruch is the only well-functioning Exalted. Yeah, and that's because Baruch is like, and his weapon is crazy. But like, Baruch being stronger, I don't even think is like a problem, because like any stronger you make Baruch right now actually kind of doesn't matter. Like, the stronger you make Baruch, he will continue to do the exact same thing that he does for like thousands of levels. Yeah, Baruch's Augment is also really good. Yeah, Baruch literally got better Exalted Blade Augment. The farm is prime then, yes? Yeah, I mean, if you don't have Baruch, you should farm Baruch. Baruch is incredible. Baruch is like arguably the strongest duviri circuit frame. Like there's an argument there. And that, like, hey, that's pretty big. Like it's like him, Mesa, and like Saren, and like it's a tight race up there. Citrine with close contagion. Like close contagion is just insane. Like Garuda with close contagion. Valkyr 2 as well. Nah, I don't think Valkyr is very good right now. Like she sure she gets some buffs, but like she's just like not baseline very good. Like part of what Baruch has that makes him so nuts is the range, and Valkyr just really doesn't have that at all. Ruda with Nourish and good decrees. Bruh. I use Gloomy Ruda, and it's still, like, insane. Yeah, Zaku is another one that's up there, like, one of the insanes in the circuit for sure. All right, Voltor time. This isn't Steel Path, right? It is not Steel Path. You know, we are goofing around doing a classic mission, courtesy of Just, but with all of our new toys, as it were. And just like kind of just generally talking about, you know, where Warframe is right now, and you know, like some changes and things and all that kind of stuff. They nerfed shotguns, by the way. They changed how shotgun status works, which ended up nerfing stuff like the Tigress that was standard for a long time. It doesn't work the same way anymore. I feel like we're going to see a Tigress in Karnan. Like, I really would not be shocked to see that in our second round. That would make a lot of sense to me. Tigress and Karnan is the new shotgun Vendetta Arcane. So Tigress Fire was just straight worse than Sancti, yeah. Voltor. Equivalent of you beating the RPG and then going back to the starting area with your endgame gear, which is funny because for a, like, think about this, like not that long ago, the Steel Path didn't exist. This was like theoretically the hardest mission in the game. Right? Like for a lot of players, they don't even have the Steel Path. Like this is the game for them. Which I think is like interesting to think about. And like obviously if they don't play Steel Path, they're not going to have access to like these versions of the Voltor and the Lex. But like there's like not that much not that long ago for us, it's been 4 years. Yeah, the game's been around for 10. For most of the game's life, there's been no Steel Path. And like, how many players are doing Steel Path all the time? I don't think it's that many. Like by and large. I think it's probably higher than I would even suspect. Because I would say, like, people who are doing Steel Path, it's probably like 20%. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's like more like a 30% range, which would be pretty impressive, honestly, of active players. Obviously not of the total player base, because that would be crazy. But yeah, like most of us that are like, you know, playing like kind of the higher end of stuff and like doing all that business are like living in Steel Path, but like a lot of players just aren't. And like a lot of players will start the game. Like think about all the people starting the game right now. If they're starting with duviri and like just playing a bunch of duviri and enjoying themselves, are they like, how likely are they to get to Steel Path within the next year? How likely is that? What's the percentage of players that even stick with the game that are going to get to Steel Path in the next year? Maybe 5%? Like 5% is probably a bit generous. Wait, why is Sanctity Tigress better than the Prime? I thought the critical damage makes the Prime better. There was like some calculations. These are like ages old from the last time the Tigress was a relevant weapon, but at ages ago the Sanctity Tigress was considered better. It might be different now. And probably with an Incarnate, the Prime would be better because that's the weapon that people have like the nostalgia for and really liked. Try to track your progress to Steel Path. Yeah, if you go into your profile, you can like hover over like your star chart XP and stuff. And it's also just like if you look at any node or any planet, any blue flashing dots are the ones you haven't done. Yeah, you can do your like star chart node progress though. That's in your profile under your stats. For Plates and Spade, I got over 900 hours. I just unlocked Steel Path in the last expansion just for the new Incarnates. Yeah, that is exactly what I mean. And like, I want to be clear, whenever I'm talking about this, I'm not saying that like those players are like doing it wrong or they're so casual. But it's just like they exist. Like they're casual players for sure. But like that is definitely not a small, insignificant amount of the player base, I would say. Like I think that would be like crazy to discount that experience with the game. And that's why, like, I think if you look at, like, some people were really criticizing a lot of, like, what the loner builds look like for duviri. But for duviri, those loner builds are for non-Steel Path, right? Like, pretty explicitly, they're for non-Steel Path. And Steel Path is even doable if you're, like, all intrinsic up and all that good business. But, like, yeah. They're only expecting Steel Path to be done by people who are, like, really invested. Which I think is correct, to be clear. You'll survive with them, which is probably the most important thing. Yeah, and then, like, to talk about, like, yesterday. So yesterday, for anyone that's watching the YouTube video that doesn't know this, yesterday on, like, the streamathon that we've been doing, Sarah played through duviri, and she's not even done Second Dream yet. So she is, like, effectively a new player. She's, like, looked at the game a lot and stuff like that. But she's effectively a new player. And duviri was the thing for her that, like, really made, like, kind of Warframe gameplay click a lot more. And, like, that's, like, a great thing. Because, like, for the longest time, she's been following the game because, like, she's been, like, the community manager for various Warframe streamers. And, like, you know, obviously she's in a relationship with me. So she's, you know, Warframe's a little unavoidable for her. But it's never really grabbed her. But, like, the gameplay, literally playing through the duviri Paradox as Mag, she was like, I like Mag. And that is a triumph of the duviri Paradox. Like, to be able to get a player like Sarah that has not traditionally been like, oh, I'm way into the gameplay here. Like, she's always loved, like, the fashion and that kind of, like, customizational stuff and all those things, which are obviously great in Warframe. But, like, to convert her into being like, oh, I actually like the gameplay here is, like, really huge. Like, I think, like, that is a triumph of, like, what duviri and, like, what the loner builds do.
I think part of it is that it skips, like, all of the leveling stuff that the base game has.
Yep, absolutely. It skips the leveling and it skips the putting together builds. Also, as a reminder, this is Freezer. Welcome, Freezer.
Hello.
But yeah.
I'm playing the Zelda.
Nice. Fair and valid. Yeah, we're going to be doing that in a little bit. For those of you that are catching this on YouTube's, we should be playing the Zelda probably as this goes live. Potentially. But yeah, so, like, yeah, that's, like, a huge triumph of it is, like, to remove the having to build stuff and just, like, allowing new players and people that don't really want to engage with the modding system to simply play, I think is a huge, huge thing.
1000%.
Yeah, also there's a Sarah.
Yeah, no, I have never connected with Warframe, like, playing. Ever. And duviri did that for me. And it removed all barriers that I don't want to do. I don't want to make builds.
Yeah.
I don't want to grind and level and do all the things that I need to do.
Yeah. And one of the really nice things is, actually, I don't know if you know this. I've talked about it a few times. I don't know if you've picked it up. If you have an item, like you built it, and you use it in duviri, it'll level it from you using it there with a full build.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of like another, like, removal there. Yeah, I think that duviri is really huge, at least from, like, the gameplay perspective of, like, new player stuff.
1000% from the gameplay perspective. I like Warframe more now than I have in the entire 6 years I've been exposed to it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like what you told me, like right before we started here, like the new Legend of Zelda just came out, Tears of the Kingdom, and she would like to play Warframe and see the second dream. Is where Sarah's at right now, instead of on that Zelda train, which is impressive.
It is, but the reason I want to see Second Dream is because of my complaints about duviri.
Well, sure.
But that's not the point of this. But yeah, I like it. Felt so good to play, right? So I just want to do it again.
Fair. Duviri's a cultural shift. Fair. I think that's reasonable. I wonder if it'll change a lot of their design going forward, depending on how impactful it is with newer players. Like, I wonder, like, what the numbers say in terms of, like, did so many players come and play duviri and then just keep playing duviri and still not really get the main game? So, like, the next thing they design is going to be an extension of duviri forward rather than maybe what they had kind of originally planned. Because, like, I'm actually curious on this. If they let you kind of just, like, separate out, like, the grind and, like, make your own of, like, your builds and everything like that, like, if they released a new quest and for a player like you that, like, has, like, completed duviri, like, you can just kind of just go into it and just do it, removing, like, all those barriers was, like, just letting you play those things, does that just, like, make the game just, like, infinitely better for you personally?
Like, just like a really stripped down version of Warframe where I can just
Well, not necessarily
play
stripped
without
down.
the build.
Well, like, just, like, basically being like, hey, like, even for, like, Second Dream, right? Of just being like, well, we want you to be able to play this, so here's a loner build for Second Dream. Like, whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because that's what I use you for. No offense. That's what I use you for, right?
Hey, that's what most people who watch me on YouTube use me for. So, like, that's the point.
It's just that, like, I liked playing Gara. Like, prior to duviri, I thought Gara was a cool design. So I looked at you and I said, what do I do with it?
Yep.
And you told me, and then I just played that thing.
Yeah.
And that's all
exactly.
I want.
Yep. Yeah, which is, like, I mean, that's how, like, a lot of people interact with Warframe. And, like, a lot of it is that, like, the leveling part of it also is, like, just not your thing.
Nope, don't care.
Yeah. And, like, you don't want to grind out for, like, specific mods and stuff, or at least not until, like, you become really invested, because you do grind out stuff in games. You play FF14, but, like, it's just not, like, you have to be more invested before you get there. Yeah, would you say that?
I also have to like what I'm grinding. Like what I grind in Final Fantasy, I find interesting. Like, ooh, I want to make this cute bracelet.
Yeah, fair.
Or, like, you know what I mean? So I'll go grind like ores that I need to mine to make, right, to eventually make that.
Right.
I think that the grinding system in Warframe is much more complex.
Fair.
I ran into this with what was it?
Whenever you were learning Void Relics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that will eventually lead to a thing that I might want, but I don't even know, like, it's just so there's so many layers to it.
Right.
And while I think that's very rich for players who are really into that, for me, it's just confusing.
That's fair. Yeah, and, like, there's even, like, missions that you've done or whatever where it's like you just don't know what even drops from where, right? Like, you don't want to go to a wiki article to be like, where do I get this thing that I'm supposed to need for Gara, right?
I don't mind that so much because I do that in Final Fantasy 14 realistically.
Well, sure. But, like,
it's just
it's that stuff that's, like, usually auxiliary, not, like, central to the plot of the game, right? Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just not my favorite. It's just not my favorite thing to have to do. And also, everything has such an interesting name in Warframe. Everything is very thematic.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool, right? As far as, like, world building.
Yeah.
But it makes it very difficult to speak the language as a new player.
Yeah, well, because whenever someone looks at you and they go, oh, you need your Xeneric focus tree at rank 4 with Void Mastery, you go, that sure is words.
Yep. I do. It's that meme of, like, yes, I understand what is going on. Head is empty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that.
And, like, yeah. And, like, whenever I, like, told you, like, how to do, like, the Void Relics and stuff so you could get, like, past that junction, like, after like it clicked with you, but it was like, oh, that's what these are. This is what this is telling me, right?
Yeah, I also think it's clunky.
Yeah,
It's
no, for
weird
sure.
to me. It's weird to me that I have to go back to my like. But I guess I don't have to. But like, the void relics are in the back. But if I want to see what void relics are up, I have to go up to the navigation, and I don't understand why those two things aren't like intrinsically linked.
So a thing that is unclear in those menus, if you open that menu that like shows you the visuals, right?
Yeah.
From that menu, you can upgrade your relics and see what you have. Like whenever you go in, whenever you go into like choose, you haven't like told it you're doing the mission yet, and you can back out of that menu, but that'll open up your relics that are appropriate, that are appropriate for that mission.
Interesting. You're breaking up, by the way.
I'm breaking up, huh?
You were. I don't know
No,
if
that was
Discord's
just me.
in.
But that was just me coughing.
No, even before that, it was that whole thing. It might have been Discord just being wild though.
There may be some weirdness with Discord. And can't you move the relic pedestal? You cannot move the relic pedestal, to my knowledge. That would be very strange.
Oh, there was a small F. Oh.
Stream lags slightly, so the internet maybe went haywire. Hopefully no internet haywireness. We've been lucky so far.
Yeah, actually we really have, haven't we?
Yeah, no real issues, no power going out, no nonsense.
Well, now you've said it.
I'm just saying I'm happy. I'm not trying to jinx it.
I did pay the bill, so.
Good.
No happiness, despair.
Oh no. Overly complicated. Yeah. I mean, Warframe is nothing if not overly complicated, which is why it's nice that duviri is so simple.
It is. It really strips back all the things in the best way.
Yeah. What's your goal in this mission? We are using a classic stuff, so we're using Rhino and like Voltor, and I'm using the Lex, and I'm not using their Incarnate forms just because it's like unnecessary, and just like, you know, showing how these weapons are now, and just doing mod, just like classicing up on my classic, but like 2023 style.
I really like the Lex. I had fun with it.
It is now one of the best secondaries in the game, so if you decide to pursue that, it's pretty good. You ever wonder if we're going to get a lot more community-oriented changes with Reb at the head now, like all the stuff you've been talking about for the past few days? I mean, it's certainly possible. I mean, I think that there's always going to be some amount of, like, community focus that Reb's going to have, just because, like, you know, that was her position for so long. That, like, that's probably a little bit unavoidable. But, like, it's probably going to be more nuanced than that, because, like, obviously she does have a new role.
I think she has a unique perspective. And I think that'll be interesting. But I still think that Warframe has an incredible challenge that most games don't have. And that it's that it has incredibly long legs for how it's such an old game, right? That when making new content, they can't just make new player focused content.
Yeah. Although I think they split the difference well. Like, this update really is like half new player, half like extremely experienced veteran player, which is impressive.
I agree, but I think the story hurt it for it.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, because like, yeah, I mean, we could go into it more, but like, too long didn't read. Sarah ended the story much how many people did of duviri by going, "What happened?"
Yeah.
And like that happened for a lot of people.
Yeah. Brozime has a VOD in which I discuss what I feel the pitfalls of duviri is, and I would recommend that to anyone if you're curious.
Yes, that was yesterday's VOD. That is up and available. It's like 15 hours long.
It's towards the end. Yeah, it's towards the end.
It's like the middle end.
There's two sections of it. The first section is like 10 hours in, and the second section
It's like
It's
around
like
13
hours in.
Yeah, 13 hours. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Good thing Twitch has a pretty good way to scroll through VODs. Before or
That's
after the
true.
bit war. That was the day later. Or that was the thing you were discussing is a day earlier, rather. What happens is a very classic Warframe experience, and now it doesn't require hundreds of hours. Yeah. It's just for you to end any particular quest and go, Wappa. Why?
In short, my thought is I think that Warframe tells exceptional stories, but presents them very poorly. Overall thoughts.
And Carrier Prime is dead. If that's not a classic feel, I don't know what is. I'm going to refrain from going into the where's Univac discussion, because this is like the exact thing that causes it. Sentinel dead, where Univac? Of the opinion that New War is the best quest they've done just 300 hours into the game. Yeah. I'm torn. Second Dream, I think, is a really like tight experience. New War is like a much more of an like New War is half of a AAA like cutscene driven story game. Like really, like because it's like 5 hours long for most players. Like and it's pretty insane. And like there's still a lot of stuff that like definitely got cut out of New War that I wish was there. Where enemies? Hello? Fucking echo.
Hello, excuse me, enemies, calling all, literally any guys. Where is everyone?
Life support has
You
been
win.
replenished.
Yeah, I win, apparently. Now this is the classic Warframe experience. Where are they at, though? Oh, hello, a couple dudes.
They're all on lunch.
Yeah, apparently. That's the weirdest thing about a survival mission. Sometimes enemies figure it out, and they're like, if we just don't go get them, then they're going to run out of air and die. We're bringing them air.
They're all sitting in the break room.
Yeah.
Going, I'm not going out there. Everybody's getting killed.
Yeah.
Those sitting right here.
Yeah, that, for all the people asking for better AI in Warframe, they just don't show up if they're smart enough.
Life support has been replenished. We will all share in this bounty. Hold out as long as you can.
Grab this air. I didn't realize it was shift change. At least we really got the classic Mott feel down. That is what we were going for after all. What level are these enemies at this point anyway? Actually, I don't even know. Only 95.
Gosh, you know what I just considered?
Go on.
The duviri update kind of puts a game within Warframe. It doesn't kind of, it does.
Yeah.
They put a game in a game.
Yes.
Have you seen our game?
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's so funny.
They've actually had a few updates like that. You know what, you would probably, I bet you, well, maybe. I bet you'd be interested in what the Railjack quest looks like, and that you would like one of the characters in it. But I think the structure of the Railjack quest is maybe not for you.
I don't know.
Yeah, that might be an interesting one. That comes after Second Dream and everything, though. So well, that's a future topic. Warframe is games all the way down. Okay. Unlimited games, but no games. Or unlimited bacon, but no games.
I'd say the only gameplay I don't like in Warframe that I just don't like is the whatever I did yesterday.
Go on.
Where I just bonked my head through the entire mission. I was lost.
Oh, Archwing. Yeah, that was their first game within a game. It did not go super well. Yeah, they keep saying they're gonna remove all that, or they were saying that for a little while, but then yeah, yeah.
All right, it's the one thing I didn't like. If you're a huge fan, I apologize.
No, no one is. So you don't have to apologize to anybody. Even the devs themselves are not huge fans. They have said publicly on DevStream, yeah, we should remove all those.
Talking about Archwing?
Yeah. Yes.
I unwittingly, Freezer, took a path that required me to do an Archwing mission.
Yeah, she
yesterday.
went right when she went to go to Iliad on Phobos instead of going left, which is...
I thought they railroad you into an Archwing mission early on.
You'd have to do the quest, but the quest is actually like not bad. And Sarah also did that probably like 4 years ago and does not remember.
I just felt like I was slamming my head literally into every metal.
You were. That's correct.
It also does this weird thing that you're moving so quickly. Okay, I'm not to reiterate all the complaints I'm sure that everyone already has about Archwing.
No,
but it
no,
does this...
I'm here to tell you, please do. Hearing
you move
any of this from someone who does not have 10,000 hours in the game is like Ambien for a fucking Warframe veteran. Everyone listening to this right now is like, the people who are new to the game get it too. Archwing is dog shit.
I just felt like I felt like I was concussed for my Warframe.
Yeah.
Because I kept slamming into things, and then I would see the exact same layout of the room that I was just in like a couple seconds ago because I'm moving so quickly. Like on repeat. Like I felt like it was like a... I was like, oh, I'm outside. Oh, right, I gotta go left to the gate again. Right. And then it felt like I was... I knew I was getting closer because the distance thing was counting down. But it felt... Man, it was a tile and it felt like it. I was like, am I in a... Is time a circle?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that is... Yeah. Is there a short footage for Archwing? It's called the Amisha, which is also known as the Archwing that they made so good on purpose because Archwing sucked. Like, let no one make the mistake of thinking that the Amisha is just imbalanced. It is imbalanced on purpose. It is, like, insanely strong, mega good, because they realized if anyone was going to play Archwing, they were going to need, like, the most absurdly busted shit in the world for anyone to actually be able to muscle through it.
It's literally just a band-aid.
Yeah, it is a giant Archwing-shaped band-aid. That's why that thing is so broken. Amisha is the 4-way invincibility device. Yeah. The Amisha, even today, is so strong that if it were a Warframe, it would be one of the best in the game. Like, that shit is insane.
I really appreciate when we talk Warframe.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Because our perspectives couldn't be any more different.
Oh, yeah, no, like, literally completely opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is... Yeah, and like even just like from like the way that we approach games in general, right? Like I love
That
like
is
doing
true.
like a grindiness, and like you need like way more like story attachment type stuff usually.
Yeah. I think it comes from like I love to read books. Like I'm a big book reader. I love a story.
Yeah, and I love to do math.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because we've talked about this and I've revisited this topic a couple times probably, but even in game development, there's like two primary thoughts of like, do you develop a good gameplay loop first and then a story to service it, or otherwise. And I feel like if you and
hold
I
on
in a
second.
world,
just to clarify, I think for the YouTube peeps, she is a producer at an indie game studio. So continue. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify.
no, you're totally fine. I feel like if you and I, like in a world where you and I were like directors of games, we would approach them exactly that same kind of way.
Right.
You would be very gameplay driven in how you directed a game, and you would have story, right? That doesn't mean there's not that, right?
No, for sure.
But I would first be like, let's find a cool story to tell, and then build gameplay around to service that story, which is just different approaches, right? And I think that what makes our conversation perspective is so different.
Yeah, well, because I think it's interesting because I think we both really value story. It's just like the order in which we would tackle the problem would be reversed. Like I'd be like, well, the game has to be fun, and then I want to do something with that.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Where I would be like, well, no, people are gonna love this story, and then let's build gameplay to complement it.
Yeah. Whereas I'm like, well, the balance of this needs to be thus, otherwise people will hate this.
Yeah, and I think for that very reason, we'd attract completely different audiences. Right?
Yeah.
You're also just a knowledge pit.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. It's just factual. It's not a compliment, but I'm glad.
Okay, well,
Don't take it as a compliment.
yeah. I'm not complimenting you. That's just a
complimenting
thing
you.
that's real. All right.
It is. It is.
All right.
I'm so sorry.
You're okay.
But you're just a knowledge pit. So I think that a lot of that comes through when you have discussions about games and such, right?
Oh, for sure.
Is that you're always thinking analytically about how the gameplay was set up and why?
Yeah, like how does this serve someone who doesn't know these things that the game would not have told them at this point, right?
And I am more like, it's kind of like why I center my focus of duviri and my complaints about it around the story.
Yeah, well, because like one of your major problems is what's my motivation? Like for lack of a better way to put that, it literally is what's my motivation?
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. But I think players are the same way. Like I know people that will play thousands and thousands of hours of a game and be like, oh yeah, the story is
robot cool.
Whatever. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like fighting games are very much that, I think. I think fighting games are a good example of like gameplay focused games.
Yeah.
There's often a story.
Yeah.
And it matters to different degrees, and it can be very interesting, but it does service the gameplay.
Yeah, like what they're making first and foremost is like a competitive 1v1 or 3v3, whatever, fighter.
Whatever. Yep.
Yeah.
I think
it's actually interesting is because one of the games that I think broke away. Let's talk about fighting games for a second. One of the games that's like interesting and I think broke away from that a little bit is whenever they made that recent Dragon Ball Fighters game, because that game is a really good fighting game, but it felt like nostalgia came first, which I think is why so many people latched onto that one, because they did such an immaculate job like recreating scenes of the anime, but as a thing you can play, which I think is part of why that game really like insanely took off.
Well, the nostalgia thing is like a thing for our generation as a whole.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And they really hooked into that, it sounds like. Well, that's what I mean. Look at the rebirth of platformers that happened a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was also big nostalgia. Right?
Yeah. And well, and even to that point, like to get back to Warframe, it's literally what I am doing right now. I'm using the Boltor Prime, the Lex Prime, the Dual Ichors, and Rhino Prime, which recently the Boltor Prime and the Lex Prime so far got buffed with like a new mechanic to bring them back to like the meta, but they're weapons from like the early heyday of Warframe that like people would consider like the classics, and like the new system brings them back, and that brought a ton of people in that are like, I get to use the Lex and the Boltor, bro. Like that is nostalgia baiting super hard in a way that's like really fun and I appreciate a ton. But like that's absolutely what it is, right?
Yeah. But I think that's value. Like we all want to go back a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that just works for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Cause like we're definitely gonna get more of the nostalgia stuff.
But I think even those like nostalgia games have to make that don't have to, but end up making that choice of like, what are we focusing more, gameplay or story?
Yeah.
Like, I think that still has to, that they're not exclusive, even if their hook is different. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I agree.
Like, their hook may not be story or gameplay, but they still have to make
still
the
has to be a
decision
hook.
of, yeah, well, they still have to make the decision of like which way they're going.
Yeah, and well, and like, I suspect that some of those decisions just kind of get made subconsciously, right?
Well,
Like,
it's
it's like
interesting.
you don't even know why you're working on the thing you're working on sometimes, but it's like, I'm working on this because it's the thing that's important to me, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I think another good example, though, of like, of a company struggling with that exact choice is, and you know, for all it's worth it, was Blizzard with Overwatch.
Oh, yeah.
Overwatch was very much gameplay first, story secondary,
Yeah.
right? Like, they made all these cool characters, but ultimately the gameplay loop is what made that game.
Yeah.
But what did the community hook
There's an
into?
argument for one other thing, but we won't go into it.
Well, and then the community, but the community hooked into story. Like,
Yeah.
that's what they wanted more of. So I think what happened when they went to go to develop Overwatch 2 is they realized that they had to put way more into story, but what that left them with is a gameplay loop that was lackluster.
Overwatch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the Overwatch gameplay loop got lackluster because their balance changes were just horrific.
But they
Oh, like
didn't
over the course of Overwatch 1.
But what I mean is they didn't iterate in 2.
Oh, sure,
Right.
yeah. And well, and they didn't even end up doing, I mean, I think that Overwatch 2 is a colossal failure in terms of a lot of different things. But like,
Oh, yeah.
the story mode that they promised is still not in that game. There's still no story.
Turns out it's very well, but that's the thing though, right? Is I'd be curious what their development team looked like, because if they kept the same development kind of team structure
Yeah.
from 1, I don't know how well that team would be equipped to go more story focused without having to do a lot of like prep work that they didn't have to do for the first one, right? Because that you're shifting gears by
Right.
making like something story based in that game, and then that team would have to all figure out what that process looks like.
Yeah, that's fair. How are you enjoying FF14? Which job are you playing? I'm playing War, and FF14 is amazing. We just recently finished 5.3. For anyone that's curious where we are.
Oh, yeah, I spent 2 hours crying. We did
Yeah.
Omega raids
And that was
and
also, yeah, we did 5.3.
5.3
Yeah, that was the same
on
day.
the same day.
Yeah, that maybe was a mistake. But yeah, it was really good. But yeah, the streamathon's going very well. We are 1 minute away from that 1 hour that I said that this video was going to be. So yeah, anyone who's checking this out on the YouTubes, hopefully enjoyed the discussions and conversations about the history of Warframe, and you know, it's kind of all kinds of fun and stuff and things with Freezer, me, and Sierra, and all this kind of business. It's a good time. Come check out the streamathon. It will be ongoing, as you can very, very clearly see. Get the exit of this mission now. Good podcast. Hey, sometimes you just got to be in a survival for an hour and talk to friends.
Told you I was single.
Oh, come on now.
Come on, I couldn't help it.
Ball, thank you for gifting 5 subs, by the way. This timer ain't never going below 3 days. Jesus. Yeah, I re-leveled the dual liquor, too.
The longer you fight, the more successful we will be. Tenno.
But yeah. I'm gonna end the recording now. Thanks, YouTube. Hello. Come hang out. Come do the thing. All right, everybody. Welcome to Post Duviri Month, and thank you to all of the new and returning patrons. There are a lot of them, and it is hugely appreciated for the support. But we have our $10 patrons: Alex Parnham, Arbiter Daydream, Brutus Salazar, Dylan Dworsky, Ethrain, Hafan, IQ is Thick, James Harsthorne, JC4 Science, Jesse Richens, Joshua Adams, Lou Zanth, Malik X Williams, Minty Ginja, Michta, Paradise, Tamrielic Wastelander, Zach Zahner, and Zerafir, to thank the specialists. Thank you very much to all of the new patrons and everybody that has jumped on board since like Duviri in this last month. It's hugely appreciated and really helps me run the site and just like get a lot of stuff done and get a lot of guides out. This month you can expect me to hit up as many of the incarnates as I can possibly get my hands on, because that is gonna be a big focus here as we see that new stuff. and of course work on more guides and things with the free to play through coming back around and all that. Yeah, thanks everyone.